Welcome back everyone to Racing Reviews and welcome to my discussion on Max Verstappen. I've just got in from a day of teaching and I find myself reflecting on that Canadian Grand Prix because though it wasn't a fantastic race, it wasn't the best Canadian Grand Prix, wasn't the worst of this season. And I find myself thinking that Max Verstappen this year in that Red Bull car is so incredibly put together. Is this kind of what we're expecting this year? Is that Canadian Grand Prix, by the time we get to Las Vegas to Dubai, is that going to be like a standout race of the season? And it made me think even deeper because Max is on fire this year. He is driving better than he ever has. He is so comfortable in that car. He is pushing it for the first 5 laps. That's it. Like, it's not a challenge, is it? Pushes for 5 laps, and then he can kind of just coast around for the rest of the Grand Prix. Is that Grand Prix racing? That's a debate in itself. But what I want to talk about today, and I think a really interesting topic that happened for so many years with Schumacher, so many years with Mercedes and Hamilton, and now it's transitioning into Max Verstappen. Who's going to take him down? Who is going to be able to beat Max Verstappen? What is going to be his undoing? And I think there's a few options. Starting off with the competitors, with those around Max Verstappen, because Adrian Newey has built a beast for that Red Bull team this year. Max has got his claws sunk into that car so deeply that he can just drive the socks off of it. No trouble at all. He knows how to extract the best performance pretty much every single race weekend from that car. I mean, look at his results so far this year. 6 wins, 2 second places. And arguably, those 2 second places could have been victories if things had swung the other way. So he's in control of that car, he's in control of that team. His teammate Sergio Perez, who at the start of the year with 2 victories in the first 4 races, looked like he was going to be able to form some sort of challenge to Max this year. That's just completely crumbled. And in the last 3 Grand Prix, Checo's not even made it into Q3. So that challenge, I don't feel there's much of a discussion there because Red Bull are so happy with Max bossing it at the moment. I don't think they're going to change it up for next year. There's that conversation with Daniel Ricciardo, but Checo does good enough. Doesn't cause them too many headaches. It's well enough to be in that second car. But he's not going to take Max Verstappen from that top spot. There's no point in discussing Checo today. As much as Checo is a very experienced and talented racing driver, he's not going to be the one that takes Max down. But look at the other drivers. Look at the other teams around Red Bull and Verstappen. And there's your conversation. There's your argument. We'll start off with Mercedes, because I think naturally that's the most likely to take on Verstappen, because they had a car at the start of last year that at points was struggling to get out of Q1. I mean, that Saudi Arabia Grand Prix last season, that's the one that sticks out in my mind, because Hamilton just could not extract performance from that car. We know they had the no side pods and they've ditched that now. They've gone to the side pod philosophy for that car. Toto Wolff has said this weekend 2 more big upgrade packages coming this year, 1 in Silverstone, 1 later on in the year. He believes that's going to catch them up to Red Bull, but even if it does, it's too little too late now. This championship is so much Red Bulls to lose that they would have to implode. It would have to be a Spygate or a Crashgate scandal for them not to win it this year. And that's because of the brilliance of Adrian Newey's design and Max's driving that this year has been faultless, in fairness to both of them. But Mercedes with these upgrades, it's not going to be this year, but next year. That's what we've got to look at, because we are not ditching this era of cars until at least 2026. And even then, it's not a big overhaul like we had in 2022. So Mercedes need these upgrades, not necessarily to straight away jump them in front of Red Bull, but what they need them to do is to help start to progress them towards Red Bull, of course, but to progress that development plan ready for next season, because they've ditched the no side pods, and I think that can't be underestimated, how big of a shift that's going to be for Mercedes. And that's going to be a big hope for Formula One fans, that they've gone to this philosophy that's more in line with Red Bull and Ferrari. They just need to tweak it now. They need to get it right. But it's a lot of catch-up, a year and a half of catch-up they've got to work on. But they have the drivers, Hamilton and Russell, two world-class drivers. Lewis, he's nearing the end of his career, but he's still got it. And George, though he's prone to a mistake or two, so was Verstappen in his first 5 seasons. George isn't as experienced as a lot of the top guys around him in these top teams. And so you cut him a little bit of slack. Similar to a Charles Leclerc. The raw speed is there, but the mistakes are still there. So Mercedes have got the driver pairing. It's just whether they can develop that car. But if they can, it's more than possible. They can be the team to do it. They've done it in the past. They know how to dominate. That incredible 2021 season that I think will not be beat for a very, very long time. They went toe-to-toe. And it was just down to that race in Dubai that unfortunately went the way it did, with such a scandal surrounding it, that I think for lots of us, doesn't really matter which camp you're in, Lewis or Max, didn't have that ending that it deserved. Doesn't feel like that season was resolved because it's still up in the air, and that's such a shame for a really, really incredible season. But I don't think it gave us that full picture of which team's going to come out on top. It's not resolved for me anyway. That story is still waiting to be written, the finale to that one. And so it would be fantastic if Mercedes were the team to challenge Red Bull and to really take it to Max for the rest of the year with that Silverstone upgrade. But it just seems unlikely. What I would add to that, though, is that Red Bull still have this punishment for their cost cap breach looming over them. And they said this weekend, and on Ted's notebook made it really, really clear that, of course, it hurt them in their development for this year's car, but it's going to hurt them more for next year's car, because they've already started working on this year's car halfway through last year before any of the punishments came into play. So it's going to affect them more next year rather than this season. So that's going to be really interesting to see how much that does affect them going into next year, how much Mercedes catch up. But also, I would say a bit of a sleeping giant so far this year is Ferrari. Naturally, again, it makes sense that Mercedes and Ferrari are going to be the two teams that are closest. But Ferrari had a car last year that for the majority of the season, if not all of it, could have fought for the title, but it was their own undoing. Drivers, team, strategy, it was a mix of all sorts for them last season that just didn't go their way. That cost them last season. It cost them big. And Red Bull, who had the quicker car, but actually, in terms of procedure, they nailed it. Every part of that team was on top form. Max's driving, Adrian Newey, strategy, pit stops were the quickest on the grid. They nailed everything last year. And so it didn't really matter if Ferrari made mistakes. I still think Red Bull would have had them. But Ferrari have cut them out a little bit more this year. Not much. I mean, this weekend in Canada, they nailed the strategy. But it's still no podiums. They've had such a lack of podiums this year. And when you think about Bahrain, that first race of the season, it looked like in quali, Ferrari were there. It looked like they had a car capable of challenging. It just never came to fruition. So if they can pull the finger out and have some upgrades of their own, they're in a similar position to Mercedes. Few tweaks to that car, and they should be fine. Get a circuit that suits that car, they should be in the hunt. But it's got to be more consistent, and procedurally, they have to be more on it. But there's so many reasons why Red Bull have been smashing it. And what it would need is, I think, more than just one or two teams being able to produce a better car. I think it needs Red Bull to really start to slip up. And that could be in the form of big departures, where they've got one or two of their technical team moving over to McLaren, who themselves have made big strides forward, but are still a little bit too far back. Aston Martin have proved this year that all it takes is a bit of genius and a stroke of luck, and you can go from a real backmarker team to a team that is high flying at the front of the grid. It's doable in Formula One. It really is. But for Max Verstappen to be pulled off this incredible course at the moment, I've got to say, in 2023, feels almost impossible. And I suppose a big reason why I wanted to sit down today and to bring back this just chatty kind of conversation style of video is that I've been watching Formula One this season and there's not been a lot of content. There's none. It's been so tricky while I've been teaching with my class to even entertain it. And it's been so lovely with the young people of this country to talk about Formula One and teach them about Formula One. And on my bookshelf in my class, I've got plenty of Lewis Hamilton books because that's what's really available, unfortunately. A few Sterling Moss books as well, but there's not really the literature out there. But my point is that talking to them from their perspective and listening to a young person's perspective about Formula One and hearing that it's the same person winning week in, week out, it can feel draining, it can. But there is that element of, we saw it with Schumacher and Hamilton, you've just got to enjoy the brilliance. And it's difficult, it is. We have weekends like Canada, which actually with safety cars wasn't too bad. But we're in race 8. There are still, how many more? 14 more to go. Verstappen is on a 4-race winning streak. I don't see that ending anytime soon. Reliability in Formula One is better than ever, especially in that Red Bull car. So it's going to take something special. Monaco, which very, very easily could have gone a very different way. One slight mistake in terms of in those wet conditions, in terms of strategy, getting it the wrong way, that could have been game over and they could have been off the podium. But everything they do seems to turn to gold and you just have to respect it. So in terms of who can take out Max Verstappen, who's going to be that team, that force to take it to Red Bull next, my gut does say Mercedes. It really does, knowing that they've been here before, knowing they've got upgrades. They've got 2 drivers who I believe can take that fight to Max Verstappen. But with the form Max is in, I don't think anyone could touch him on the grid. Even Sir Lewis Hamilton, one of, if not the greatest of all time. Max is in a period of dominance at the moment, and he deserves it. Equaling Ayrton Senna this weekend in race victories, is sure to surpass many more greats, if not even this season. 9 wins in a row is the record, and it's doable for Max this year. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Is it going to be a Mercedes or Ferrari taking down Max Verstappen in the next few years? Or do we need to wait a little bit longer? Is it going to be an Audi? I've not mentioned Alonso and Aston Martin. Not mention McLaren or Alpine. So I would love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Just a casual video today. Hoping to introduce this a little bit more over the next few weeks. Get in, verbal diarrhea my thoughts at the camera and have a conversation down in the comments. It's been wonderful sharing this 13 minutes or so with you guys. Thank you all very much for watching. If you're new and you just want a chilled out 15 minutes talking about Formula One, you know what to do. That like button is down below. Subscribe button is there too. Hopefully, camera was a bit better this time around. Still learning. It's not my area of expertise, but fingers crossed it's doable for now. Right. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.